Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the basic meditation class at the Buddhist Society this evening. Let me tell you a little bit about it, because some of us may be new to the class, maybe even new to meditation, which is great. And the first thing I want to say is I'm still playing around with the technology here. Okay. What we do is in the first session, which is probably about 25 minutes, I'll give a few basic tips, guidelines, really from my own experience, rather than from a textbook, on mindfulness practice. And then have a little break, perhaps, in the middle, where I might think of some other things to say. And then the final 20 minutes or so would be essentially much quieter. At least I'll try and be quieter. And then we'll have plenty of opportunity for discussions. Notice I'm not saying questions and answers, but discussion at the end. However, if during the course of this evening, anybody's got any urgent questions they want to ask or comments they want to make, please do put them in the chat box. And I've already got my screen open with the chat box on it. So if you send a chat through, there's an excellent chance that I can see it. And Wongdu, whose excellent technology is making all this happen, will remind me if I don't see it immediately. So please feel free to send anything through in the chat box at all. And that would be great. And I'll try and address any comments, certainly at the end and maybe before that. And obviously, if you have any problems like not being able to hear what I'm saying, please send a message through in the chat. That would be absolutely great. So, okay, I don't think anybody else is coming in at the moment. So, let us get on with the class. This class is like all of Buddhist meditation, is sort of based around the cultivation of mindfulness, open-minded curiosity, that sort of thing, noticing and letting go, seeing what's going on but not attaching to it. You could sort of look at it and say it's attention without attachment or aversion, AAA. AAA. Attention, but without attachment or aversion to what's coming into the mind. And I want to thank you for somebody's already sent through a message, a question, which is a great question. I'll deal with it at the end. I think that's the best thing to do. Great. Yeah, so I want to say something about this crucial practice of mindfulness. It's not, by the way, I want to emphasize this, it's not all there is to Buddhist meditation, and it's not all there is to the Buddha's Noble Eightfold Path. Just a jolly important part of it. So I want to focus on mindfulness and just a few tips as to how we do it, and then talk about why it's absolutely central, actually, to the Buddha's teachings. So there you go. So people who are absolutely brand new to meditation or to this class have a great advantage over everybody else, because you're probably, I hope, approaching this evening with an attitude of open-minded curiosity. That's a great attitude to sit with. Just a general attitude. What's this? You know, what's all this? It's like this. Without necessarily forming any views or opinions or having any plans. You know, I'm sure we've all heard something about meditation or mindfulness meditation, and you think, that would be nice. Let's go for it. Not even that is terribly helpful, because mindfulness itself is just noticing. That's it. If you can notice whatever happens this evening without getting involved in it, you've mastered the art of mindfulness. There again, a teacher, a Buddhist Society teacher, once said to another completely different class, just go into a room every day for a week, go into a room, sit down for 15 minutes and see what happens. That's it. That's it. But I might want to give a bit more structure to that suggestion over the next few minutes. Mindfulness without attaching or aversion. It's just noticing what happens in the present moment. That's it. But not attaching to it. Noticing and letting go. And the letting go part is, as we all know, very difficult. Stuff comes into the mind and we, fixate on it, amplify it, try and run away from it, etc., etc., etc. We react to it rather than, if you like, respond to it. We react rather than respond. We're on autopilot most of the time in our lives, and mindfulness practice challenges that, and the Buddhist Dharma certainly challenges that at a very, very deep level. So this is more like backing off autopilot, maybe even taking control, but control in a very subtle way. The control of somebody who's prepared to let go of the urge to control, even. Yes, that's a good way of looking at it. Take control by giving up trying to control. That's quite canny. Okay. To notice anything, we need to be alert. And so a posture should be an alert posture. It doesn't really matter what it is, as far as I'm concerned. Some teachers and some traditions pay much more attention to posture than others. I'm sitting on a chair, upright, because I'm quite tall. I'm sitting on you can't see it, I'm sitting on a chair with a big cushion underneath, so that my knees are below my hips, and that sort of supports the pelvis. An upright posture. What else about the posture matters? It's kind of balanced. It's a balanced posture. So once I'm there, I'm not going to sit for a great deal of time, but I could sit here for a while. Yeah, I could sit here for a while without necessarily, it may not be hugely comfortable. After 3 or 4 hours, I know it'll be extremely uncomfortable. We won't do that this evening. But it's good enough for 25 minutes, 20 minutes probably. We park the hand somewhere so we don't fidget. It's not a question of it's not a wooden posture at all. It's just a relaxed posture. Say more about that in a moment. Hands are out of the way. Our eyes. Well, I hope we've all taken in that lovely Buddha image, which is there at the Buddhist Society. Right, that's in the main lecture room of the Buddhist Society, I think. And if you can't get there, it's nice to sit in front of it at home, I guess. And eyes maybe closed or half open. Apart from having to keep an eye on the time, I'm going to be sitting with my eyes closed. Although I might occasionally peek at the chat box. Let me do that. And it's also a relaxed posture, so it's alert and relaxed. It's kind of a balancing act, isn't it? All these cliches about Buddhism being the middle way. Well, this is a middle way between being alert and terribly uptight, and relaxed and just dormant on the other hand. You got to experiment. So I like to get a nice upright posture, comfortable upright posture. And then I like to just scan the body with the attention, experiencing how it feels. Like it feels right now, today, at whatever time it is, wherever you are. How does the body feel? I'm not interested in opinions about my body. I've got them. but tonight is not the night to share them. And their opinions can be quite, it can be critical, perhaps. As you get older, there's always something wrong with your body. but that's just an opinion. Right now, it's an opinion. What I want to be more attentive to is very basic sensations of heat, of movement, of pressure, things like that. So rather than experiencing the body, if you like, through the intellect, a male of this age, married or single, and then with all these other likes and dislikes, including I'm a bit of a Buddhist enthusiast. Well, that's all mental stuff. Right now, I'm experiencing the body as just the feeling of sitting on a chair, the feeling of my feet on the floor. Yeah. As I breathe in and out, there's pressure on the waistband. And the hands are touching something, maybe each other. You notice the warmth of the hands, contact of hands with whatever, maybe with another hand. And if we're sitting against a chair, maybe the back is touching the chair. Best not to lean against the back of the chair, because you might go to sleep. Might go to sleep. But just pressure. And then the whole trunk of the body. How does it feel? Is it warm? Is there movement there? I bet you there's movement there because we're breathing. And you can feel the ribs expanding and the rib cage expanding and contracting. Just notice that. Can't miss it. And up the back of the body, the spine, any sensations there? Again, warmth perhaps of our clothing. Get to the shoulder blades. Any sensations around the shoulders? There's a tension there. We're a bit tense. Just notice that. Now, you see, when we notice tension, it gives us a chance, a golden opportunity to relax. It's like you said, relax, relax, relax. But unless you really notice where we're tense, you don't do it. Around the front of the body, the chest, the collarbone, that area between the shoulders at the front. Now you notice the arms hanging there, the weight of the arms, sensations in the arms. Down to the hands again. Then up to the area around the neck, to the head. And the head's kind of balanced on top. It's not leaning too much one way or the other way or forward or back. Lips are touching. But notice if the jaw's clamped shut. It really needn't be. There again, yeah. Doing it, it's okay, but you don't have to clench your teeth, grit your teeth. It's not like that. Lips touching, saliva in the mouth. Warmth of the room on the skin of the face. Breath on the nostrils. Sensations around the eyes. My eyes are closed. So notice the sensation of the eyes being closed. Forehead. No need to try too hard. Actually, no need to try. We made all the effort getting here this evening. It's in the scalp, any sensations. And then we can really do quite fancy stuff, like what's the sensation on the top of the head? Is there any sensation there? Then maybe there is an itch or something, but if there's not, just be aware of the feeling of no sensation. Interesting. And maybe there's no sensation on the index finger of the right hand, or rather on the nail of the index finger in the right hand. Nothing there. Maybe there is, but and be aware of the heartbeat, the pulse. So here we are experiencing the body in quite a different way to the way we usually do. This is not the way we experience the body, the way we react when we look in the mirror. Just a lot of sensations, pressure, heat, movement as we breathe in and out, saliva in the mouth. That's heat, that's the body this evening. How's the mood? Is it? See, I was going to say, is it okay? But that's a judgment. We're not doing that tonight. We're giving up judgment for a few minutes. Is the mood bright or dull? Happy or down and depressed? Is it all a bit scatty? Or are we quite kind of calm and focused? Are we feeling peaceful? Or really pretty angry? You know, it's like, what have we brought to the party this evening? And we just notice that. Once we get the hang of mindfulness practice, we can handle anything. A happy mood or a dismal mood. Oh, it's interesting. It's like this. This is the attitude. You go into the room, we sit down. What's it like? Just like this. Just as we experience things here and now. Right now. So memories, you know, all this future stuff is just a memory right now. And our past, our history is just a memory, isn't it? So the future is like a plan, a conjecture, a hope. Past, it's a memory. And then all the stuff we add on, like the good old days, you know, that's an optional extra that we do not have to add on. Don't want to. Or the gloomy outlook. You don't have to do that. It's just like this. So you notice we sort of tend to stop time traveling and experiencing past and future as they present themselves in the mind right now. That's it. So we sit here, see what happens, experiencing the body, but not attaching to these sensations, unless they're the sort of sensations which say, hey, you got to move. Otherwise you hurt your knees if you're sitting on the floor. Or just notice the body as a mass of sensations. Notice the contents of the mind, the contents of the mind, the moods, the thinking, all that stuff, the emotions. That's quite a difficult practice, isn't it? Just sitting here and letting the world, our world, come through our minds, enter into our consciousness, the contents of the mind in the mind. So there's a mind which knows all this stuff, and there's the contents of the mind, the sensations from the body and all the mental stuff. It's a hard practice, I think, just to be the passive observer. We might need a bit of help from a bit of anchoring, a bit of stability. That's where a meditation object is handy. One I most often use and undoubtedly recommend the feeling of the breath. Where do I feel the breath? I know where I do, but everybody has to work it out for themselves. Around the nostrils, in the abdomen, anywhere else. Just a couple of deeper breaths. Okay, that's where I feel the rhythm of the breath. That's the reference point, the refuge, the anchor. where I direct the attention, where I let the attention rest. It's the default position. When the mind wanders, the past, the future, the trivia, I notice that, I let go, and then what do I do? The doing is letting go of where the attention has wandered and bring it back to the breath. That's the doing bit. Wandering mind, no judgment. See, it's as natural for the monkey mind to wander, for the attention to wander, as it is for the heartbeat to pulse away there, isn't it? That's what attentions do. They often sort of wander. They go places and they think and they emote and all the rest of it. And we're doing something very radical. We're just observing that tonight. And we're just, there we go again. Redirect the attention back. The next in-breath, the next out-breath. When the mind wanders, just notice that, and also notice the habit that kicks in often, which is to follow up on all of that, to make a story out of it. The way one thought leads to another thought, leads to what I did yesterday and what I'm going to do next year, and back to something else. We don't have to do that. This might be fun. It might be exciting. It might give a bit more of a twist to the narrative of one's life, but we don't have to do that. Notice that tendency to time travel. Let go. Bring the attention back to breathing in, breathing out. Very peaceful and calming if we just let it be that way. Quite tranquilizing. But because it's not stimulating, it is quite difficult. Because we like stimulus. Part of our programming is to get stimulation. Attachment and aversion. Really juicy stuff. This is very different. It's called cultivating peace of mind, isn't it? Following the rhythm of the breath. There are other meditation objects. You could use like a mantra. Just an inner word like peace. Love, may I be well, may others be well. Buddho, Buddho, that's just a Pali word meaning awake, like the Buddha. Or, Om Mani Padme Hum, Tibetan, which means something, but I don't have to know what it means. Just bringing the attention back to those words. That'll do. In the Nichiren tradition, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. I don't know what that means. I just bring the attention back to Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. So using a mantra can be quite handy. And also the sound of silence, which is what it says. Listening to when there's no sound, or maybe an internal sound. Just as we directed the sense of feeling to an area where there was no sensation. Wow. So we could direct a sensation of hearing to where there's no sound at all. And we might pick up the sound of silence. It's a great meditation object. Why? Because usually we think in words. And if we're listening to the sound of silence, it's got to make more of an effort to think. Or maybe we don't need to. We can let go of that tendency. Breathing in, breathing out. Following the breath, rising, falling. Beginning of an in-breath, the end of an in-breath, and the beginning of an out-breath, and the end of an out-breath. And so the cycle goes on. when I'm trying to control the breath. It might be deep, it might be shallow, it might be long, it might be short. We just notice that without any judgment, no control. The body knows how to breathe. The body knows how to breathe. We just pay attention to that, relaxing into the breath, breathing in, breathing out. And when thoughts or other stimuli arise, we know that, but don't let the whole thing get out of control. Don't let one thought lead to another thought. Just intercept it very gently. Point the attention back to the breath. I've got another, somebody sent through another good question in the chat box, which is about letting go. It's a good question. And in particular, letting go of memories associated with bad feelings about ourselves. I want to say more about that there again at the end, I think. But what I will say at this stage is we need to develop a lot of kindness and compassion towards ourselves. There you go. That's a quick answer. I may say some more. I'll try and say some more a bit later on. But yeah, got to be nice to ourselves, and that may help a lot. Okay, I got two great questions already to talk about at the end. What I want to do in a few minutes now is just to pick up this point about why mindfulness really matters. Why does it matter? Why are we doing this? This practice of noticing and letting go, of paying attention without getting attached or averse to what's going on in the mind. Why is that really important? Now, in one reason, and you don't have to be a Buddhist to appreciate this, one reason it's important is because it's therapeutic benefits. Only the other day, and I'm picking up a cutting I got from a paper, I haven't got the date on it, but a few weeks back, some of you may have seen it yourselves, and it's headed, the article is headed, mindfulness may be better than cognitive behavioral therapy at aiding recovery from depression. So this is some scientific research. Right? It looks like quality research in as much as I can judge it, which shows that mindfulness-based cognitive therapy is better than cognitive behavioral therapy for mild to modest depression. That's interesting, isn't it? So CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, is quite helpful to prevent the recurrence of mild, moderate depression. It's not 100%. Nobody's saying this is 100%. But CBT, well-known, helpful for depression and anxiety and other things besides. Mindfulness-based cognitive therapy is even better than that. That's very interesting, isn't it? I mean, and they come up with percentages better and all the rest of it. So mindfulness matters, or could matter if you want to do something about depression. A lot of people get depression, don't they, and anxiety and so on. But what about Buddhists who may or may not have depression? Why does Buddhism really matter? And then I don't often quote the Buddha's teachings, but I will on this occasion. I will quote a very well-known verse in the Dhammapada. Mindfulness is the path to the deathless. Heedlessness is the path to death. Wow, I'll repeat that again. Mindfulness is the path to the deathless. Heedlessness, which is just the opposite, obviously. Heedlessness is the path to death. That's wow, that's a big statement, isn't it? And it's interesting, so mindfulness it's all about mindfulness if you're a Buddhist. The path of the deathless. And I mean, just as an aside, I sort of noticed that mindfulness is, if you like, the distinctive innovation in Buddhism. I mean, when you talk about meditation practice, loads and loads of other styles of meditation, lots and lots. But the distinctive thing about mindfulness, the distinctive thing about Buddhism, is the Buddha taught the importance of mindfulness. How come mindfulness is so darn important? I'd like you to think of a wheel. Now, that's quite interesting because I haven't got one to put up on the screen here, but I bet everybody's probably aware that a very common symbol of Buddhism is a wheel. Maybe some of you have a little lapel badge or something with a wheel on it. So it's a wheel, There's an axle, and there are 8 spokes coming out of it to a rim. And the rim indicates some sort of progress on the path. And the 8 spokes, the Eightfold Path, obviously. Right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. And then if you like, the axle in the middle is often portrayed actually in different ways. Sometimes it can be in these images, a little image of the Buddha, but usually it symbolizes the triple gem, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, something like that. So that's the axle, if you like. What they don't have on this wheel are any kind of wheel nuts. I mean, it's like, in other words, I've got 4 wheels on my car. I did the last time I looked, and the wheels are being held on by wheel nuts. Okay, that locks the whole thing in place. If there weren't wheel nuts there, I got I got 4 wonderful wheels on my car, but the whole thing's going to fall to pieces unless they're secured with wheel nuts. So, getting back to the time of the Buddha and chariots and carts and all the rest of it, well, they didn't have wheel nuts. They had what's called a linchpin. There's a sort of vertical pin that goes through the end of the axle and keeps everything in place. That keeps the wheel turning. You take the pin out and it all falls apart. So I like this idea of mindfulness as being the linchpin that keeps the whole thing on the road. You see, I mean, just think about precepts, for example. Let's be clear, there's more to Buddhism than just meditation. They're the precepts as leading a supportive lifestyle, a supportive, non-harming lifestyle. Right? And you know what the precepts are. Essentially, they're around repeating negative habits to hurt ourselves and to hurt other people. You know, either physically or emotionally, or nicking stuff from them, or cheating people, or hurting ourselves. Right? They're at the essence of the precepts, non-harming. And often we almost inadvertently mess up on the precepts automatically. It's the autopilot. We've got some pretty negative habits in there. You know? With mindfulness, we know the story. You take something like anger. You know, if you're mindful, you do all this body scanning that we do at the beginning. It's really helpful, isn't it? Because if you get angry and you're tuned into these almost micro sensations in the body, you can feel the body tensing up. You can feel the temperature rising. You can feel the fist beginning to clench. And you can notice it and let go of it. You know, okay, there we go, okay. Or with anxiety, which makes us very defensive. You can feel the butterflies in the stomach. You notice that. You can step back from that. So we notice these impulses to harm, to deceive, to cheat, to mess up. And with mindfulness, we just notice that. And that noticing is enough. It gives us a little break, a micro break to step back, get off autopilot, and exercise not free will, but free won't. No, I won't do that. I've noticed this tendency to do that. I won't do it. And this is not, I mean, this takes place in milliseconds. You notice the impulse to keep the bad wheel spinning, right? Say more, there's another wheel going on in my mind as well, the Tibetan tango. I don't want to go around that one for the moment, right? You notice this tendency to mess up, and then you can let go of it. No, I won't do that. So we don't keep repeating. These habitual patterns of behavior, of thinking, you know, these patterns of mind based on greed, hatred, and delusion. We notice that. We can let go of that. So these are the tendencies which lead to rebirth, aren't they? Greed, hatred, and delusion lead us to grasping and clinging and acting on those. And it's all about habit reinforcement at a very deep level. With mindfulness, we can notice that and we can step back from that. And there's no more rebirth. You know, rebirth to me is all about habitual patterns of behavior. And in particular, negative patterns of behavior in this case. And we can notice what's going on. With mindfulness, we can notice. And we can let go of this rebirth tendency. And if there's no more rebirth, there's not going to be any more death, is there? So you see that mindfulness is the path of the deathless. Mindfulness is the path of the deathless. It's absolutely essential. That's what Buddhism is all about. So there. That's why it's important. Sit some more, and then we'll have a discussion. So I try not to say so much this time. But once again, always go through the basics. Beginning a period of meditation, whether it's 5 minutes or half an hour, set the body up. Alert body, yeah, pretty good. Relaxed. Just quickly check the body for tension, perhaps. Stable. Put the hands out of the way. Couple of deep breaths. Close the eyes. How's the mood? Just notice, maybe, head's a bit buzzing. Maybe you're sort of debating what we've been, yeah, or don't believe that, or we just notice that. Pick up the meditation object. Buddho, Buddho, may I be well, may others be well. Breathing in, breathing out. And it's perfectly natural for the mind to wander, for the attention to wander. And this is nature study, so we notice that tendency without any judgment at all. And then we quite deliberately point the attention back to the breath. That's called letting go. One answer to the question, how do I let go? Is if you like a sort of a distraction, right? Think of it that way. So the mind is just about to get fixed on some juicy something or other. And instead, point the attention back to the meditation object. And if the mind is wandering, that's fine, but just don't let it wander too far. Free won't. Don't have to do that. So we can all unmute if we want to and ask a question in the normal vocal way. And I've got some nice things in the box here to talk about, to discuss. What else? Yeah, next week. Yes, this is important. Next week, as the last Thursday in the month of April, so Ajahn Subhaddo will be zooming in from Spain to lead the class that evening. Anybody who's been here for a while has met Ajahn Subhaddo, at least virtually. I'll say more about him, I guess, when we meet up next Thursday. He's been a Buddhist for a long time, practiced in the Zen tradition, the Theravada tradition, been a monk for plenty of years, now as a layperson. And so it's good to have somebody with that breadth of experience. Okay, so that's better. Yeah, I'm just playing with the view on the screen. So let me pick up a couple of good questions. Okay, here's a question. How important is Sangha for daily practice? Trying to progress spiritually, mostly on my own. Feel like I'm missing out on a community, but I'm not able to leave my home to get to one. Right. Well, it's very helpful to have a lot of good friends around you. Whether we call them Sangha or just good friends who just happen to be Buddhists or not. I mean, because I've been doing this Buddhist thing for quite a long time, most of my good friends just happen to be Buddhists, but I've got plenty are not. It's more like people who are sympathetic. Don't have to be Buddhists. I remember some years ago now, I've got a very good friend who actually is Indian, and yeah, she's kind of essentially takes a rather skeptical view of all things spiritual. But on the other hand, you know, she respects people who do spiritual practice. You know, I can have a conversation about with her about this without feeling that she was putting me down or anything like that. Support was what we want is support. First of all, support. Say, yeah, I respect what you're doing. It may not have the same label on it as what I've got, but it's good to know. So, I mean, in my village here, in the foothills of the Chilterns, not the Himalayas, there's a mindfulness group based on the Baptist Church. And good people. Nice to meet up with them, you know. So a group of supportive friends is very helpful indeed. And the Buddha stressed that. And the converse of that is it's pretty good thing to avoid people who take a completely antithetical view to life, you know, because we're kind of, you know, in the herd, we tend to follow the herd. Simple as that. So it's great to have people around about to help, and that's, you know, what a class can do, whether it's face to face or online. I think online is perhaps a bit more difficult, but there you go. Depends on your situation as to how useful a group of people, supportive people are. Like I go into prison, and I like to see my Buddhist prisoners in a group. It's quite a small group. I'm just pleased to say it's quite a small group. I like my Buddhists to be out of prison rather than in prison, you know. But it's good for them to you know, in an environment which is pretty antithetical to any sort of spiritual practice. It's good for them to meet other people who are kind of trying like they are to lead a decent sort of life. So it's helpful. It's helpful. The great thing at the present time, I suppose, is as a result of COVID and all of that, there's just so many kind of online teachings, teachers, classes, that one can kind of slot into by Zoom or Teams or whatever. So that's quite good. It's not. It's always useful to have somebody, I find, you can turn to get a bit of advice from. And I say, whether you call that a sangha or, as I say, just somebody who's been doing this for a while. Yeah, that's pretty good. So, oh yeah, somebody who's kind of reassuring us that we're not completely off the rails and crazy. And you can say, yeah, if you keep doing this, right, it's beneficial. That sort of support is really good. A group, yeah, it's okay. And in the UK, there are plenty of Buddhist, I mean, not plenty, I was going to say, yeah, quite a few Buddhist groups around that one can join. One thing with a Buddhist group, typically, they're sort of aligned with more with one tradition than another, which may work with you. I mean, the good thing about the Buddhist Society is, you've got Theravada Buddhism and Zen Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism, in the Buddhist Society, and their teachings are all available online, and they have group sessions, I guess. I know. At the end of the day, it's all up to each one of us individually to do the work. However, I mean, I remember the sort of almost the last words of the Buddha. Buddha was lying there, kind of dying. He was going to die. His disciples knew he was going to die, and they were all, not surprisingly, very sad, very unhappy, because they were losing their great teacher. And I want to add, before I go on and say any more, I have really benefited from quite a few fine Dharma teachers. Yes. The Buddha was dying, and his disciples were saying, "Oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do?" And the Buddha essentially said, "It's up to you. You don't need me. I've given you the teachings. I've given you the rules for the monastic order. It's up to you. You got to do it." So that's the attitude. We can be a member of a group, which can be quite helpful. Or you might find, I mean, in any group will be be disagreements about, you name it, anything. It can be quite helpful. But the bottom line is just getting on and doing it yourself. Teachers can certainly help. Some books can certainly help. The great thing now is there is so much excellent material online. I mean, I'm biased towards Ajahn Subhaddo and all of that. He's got some wonderful teachings. I think they're on YouTube. All you got to do is go online and see them. And it's a real business. It's a real deal. But to repeat, helpful friends, supportive friends, great. If you've got them, that's really lovely. Here's another good, I hope that helps a little bit. Can I say more about letting go? How do you let go of repetitive memories, associated feelings of guilt and shame? Okay, yes. Well, the first thing I want to say sounds a bit kind of cold turkey-ish, actually. No, I'll say two things are a bit cold. First, remember that memories are just memories. They are things that pass through the mind right now, but they're repetitive. They can be repetitive. But just remember, our job as meditators is to take, as mindful meditators, is to watch the show. We go into a room, we sit down and see what happens. It can be a blissful David Attenborough. It can be a beautiful David Attenborough nature study film, or it can be some sort of nightmare. We just watch it. Oh, it's like that. And the reaction to it is like that. That's a bit cold turkey, though, being this sort of ultra cold mindfulness approach. Or we can do what I was kind of suggesting in the break. which essentially is cultivate the opposite. Guilt and shame. You know, we don't feel good about ourselves. But wait a minute, everybody here is a pretty good person, I bet you. You know, it's just like with my prisoners. I was in jail on whenever it was, Tuesday, Monday, right? And I saw guys who were in jail. And you know, they were in jail for a reason. Maybe it wasn't a good reason, but maybe they shouldn't be there. But something had happened. But what I saw were Buddhists. I saw Buddhists, okay? So whatever they'd done in the past, stuck a knife into somebody or something like that, right now they were Buddhists, okay? And I thought, that's great. And I wanted to tell them it was great. In other words, you've got to look at the good as well as the bad. We've got to take a balanced approach to this wacky thing we call ourselves. We've all done stupid stuff, it's perfectly true, but we've all done pretty good stuff as well. So it's important to reflect on that, okay? It's important to reflect on that. The good in our lives. The good in our lives, the good we do, right? You know, why people like us, why people find us helpful, our good aspirations, all that kind of stuff. Like, have we broken any precepts recently? Probably not. I mean, not big time, right? Made a few mistakes. So we've got to get things in, just reasonably in perspective. I mean, or more to the point, deliberately. So if we were doing a session on what we call metta practice, metta and karuna, loving kindness and compassion, we first of all develop these qualities for ourselves. You know, you sort of read the books, as it were. You know, we got to develop loving kindness and compassion for all sentient beings. Yes, well, I mean, that's grand. I'm not knocking it, but you can only share with other beings and other people what you got yourself. You bring to mind your own good qualities. Your own good qualities. They can be just ordinary, mundane qualities. Never mind the fact that we're, kind of good Buddhists, whatever that means. We've all got good stuff in our lives that we can reflect on, good deeds, and even like good intentions. People say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Look, it's better to have a road paved with good intentions than bad intentions. That's all I want to say about that. So bring to mind all our good stuff. And good people deserve good things. So wish ourselves good things. May I be well, may I be happy, may I be free from all suffering, because I deserve all of this. This is not making ourselves big-headed, if you notice. It's just taking off the dark glasses, the dark glasses. We're not even putting on rosy tint glasses, we're just taking off the dark glasses. You've got to try that. So we've got to cultivate thoughts of loving. I mean, and there again, this is something you can look at. Once in a while I'll do a session on all of that online, because I think it's very, very helpful. But there's a lot of good material out there in form of books or online teachings to do with metta, M-E-T-T-A, or compassion, loving kindness and compassion. And it's a practice. It is, if you want to put it in sort of lay terms, it's positive psychology, but it's good stuff. And what's behind it is this. I mean, the sense of self is the problem, as it were. So often we have a very negative sense of self. So we've got to balance that out with developing a more positive approach to ourselves. A negative sense of self is just as selfish, as it were, as thinking we're the greatest thing since the Buddha. That's stupid. And it's stupid to think we're god-awful people. Of course, memories come back, but gradually, we take a more kindly approach to ourselves. They won't come back so often. The other kind of side of this is, and this is to do with precepts, isn't it, and all that. From the point of view of meditation, one reason for not doing unskillful, stupid things is that it's more difficult to meditate peacefully, isn't it, really? The more things we regret, the more difficult our meditation practice is. So it's a little reminder that meditation in isolation doesn't really add up to too much. We've got to get the rest of the act together if we want to have a peaceful mind. That's all. But it's a lot of us feel that way, bad about ourselves. And particularly, people on doing spiritual stuff, because we said very, very high standards for ourselves, which we never live up to. Okay, so we've got to be very kind and compassionate to ourselves. You know, think of people we feel really, really good about who are maybe having a difficult time. You know, you've got a good friend who's sick. Get well soon. You really wish that. You're the person who's sick. Wish yourself get well soon. Right? You know, it's like you read about or hear about some of the terrible things that are going on in the world, all the cruelty in the world, right? You know, and you wish them peace, well-being, right? Now, tomorrow you might, you know, go online and send them some support, some money, something like that. But you can look at it right now. It's like, give yourself some kindness and support. Try that. Try that. Ah, somebody's going. Oh, okay. Somebody said, will I be offering more teaching on mindfulness? Yeah, I mean, every week we have this class. And next week, Ajahn Barry will be doing it. And the interesting thing is, I mean, he will be doing it his way. He'll be doing it his way. And so everybody I know, you know, encourages, you know, leads from the basis of own experience. So Barry's Ajahn Barry. Well, you have to understand this. Ajahn Barry, you know, used to be in the Zen group, and then he spent at least 10 years as a Buddhist monk, and now he's a lay person. I mean, his experience is not the same as mine. I've not been in a Zen group. I've never been a Buddhist monk. I don't live in Spain. He and I are about the same age, you know, but we're all doing this from our own experience. We all emphasize different aspects of this practice. And that's the thing about, there are loads of quite good books on mindfulness out there. And you sort of think, well, this is the way to do it. Well, yes, it is. It's a good starting point. But as we do it, we find out, well, things are a little bit, need a bit more help there or there. I should try this rather than that. There again, this is getting back to the question about practicing with other people, you see, because you can pick up tips from other people. What about the choice of meditation object? You know, you might be watching the breath or something like that, and you might say, well, you know, it's like getting a bit stuck with that. Any suggestions? And they might say, well, I've been using this mantra quite well. Why don't you try that? So, okay, give that a try. Try that for a while. So you might pick up some tips from other people. Well, that's the advantage of doing it with other people. Rather than, you know, I bought this book on mindfulness and you do it this way and that way and the other way. So, yeah, I mean, I'm you know, answer the question, will I be doing more on this? Yeah, sure. I'm the default option at the Buddhist Society's Thursday meditation class. I'm always looking for other people to take the class, by the way. And the interesting point you make there, which Barry and I kind of like pick up on, is teaching. You know, it's like we're just leading the class. We're just leading the class, and we're leading the class because we've been asked to do it by the Buddhist Society. There's this kind of, there used to be, I don't know if it's still true, but there used to be this sort of aura about meditation teachers. And, you know, this is not false modesty or anything like that. It's like, we're just giving some tips. We've been asked to lead the class. We're doing it like that. I mean, you know, professionally, I was a university teacher. You know, it's like, it's what you do. Right. I was a university teacher, a university researcher. These are, you know, teaching. It's like, we just lead the class, you know. Are there any other questions at all, or comments? It's good to see folks here. Somebody has just sent a message through saying they've got to go. They've got to do some local election stuff. So it's really nice that, you know, we meditators go out and get stuck in to current affairs. We can make a difference. I'm all for that, you know, in our own way. So the clock is approaching 8 p.m. our time. I haven't got any more messages coming up. I just want to, actually I want to thank the person you don't see on the screen, Wong Du. He's the chap at the Buddhist Society who's, doing the IT for this. I want to thank you very much, Wong Du, for looking after this evening. And I want to thank all of you for coming. And do please come next week for Ajahn Barry. And in between times, maybe even do a bit of meditation. Like every day, go into a room, sit down for 15 minutes, see what happens. Okay. Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming.